Hi Theory 1, here is lesson 15. On the very first page, again, this is a little bit of review, and then next week we're going to start into material that's brand new, okay? So, on the first page, you're going to be writing in on the fingerboard, you're going to write in the letters on the A string. So first finger on the A string, what letter is that? Okay, write that inside the circle. Second finger on the A string. Okay, now, some of you are just writing the letter. So for example, this is C. It's not C. It's actually C sharp. So you have to write a sharp there in that letter. If you write C, it is not correct, okay? Think of it like ice cream. If I say, hey, do you want some ice? You don't think that I'm going to give you ice cream. Or if I say, hey, do you want some cream? You're like, no, I really don't want ice and I really don't like cream, but hey, I'll take some ice cream. Okay, C sharp is the same thing. If you say C, that's a low 2. So that's not right. And if you just say sharp, well, what sharp? That's not right either. It has to be C sharp. So if the note has a sharp with it, then be sure that you write that sharp next to the letter, okay? And remember, we always say the letter on the left side and then the sharp. It's different when we write it on the staff. It's sharp than the letter, okay? So your mom might ask you for dinner. If you don't write C sharp, your mom might just say, well, hey, you get some ice for dinner. You're like, woohoo, okay? Make sure you write a C sharp or a G sharp or an F sharp. Okay, don't just write F, G, or C. So those are the A string and the E string. Now down here, I give you the letter. You have to draw a treble clef, or violas, you draw an alto clef, cellos, you draw a bass clef, and then where is that letter on the staff, okay? So the very first one is easy. It's open A. Is it way up here on a little line above the staff? Or is it on the second space for a treble clef? So make sure that you're matching the letter to where it goes on the staff. So whatever is on my fingerboard here, draw it on the staff at the bottom. Okay, that's easy. Second page, ledger lines. So ledger lines are like little ladders, okay? We can't fit all of the notes that we play on just these 5 lines and 4 spaces. So instead of saying, oh, well, we're going to play a bunch of notes on the E string, let's just add more lines. If we added lines all the way across here, well, then up here, we need a line up here. Okay, so how do you know if I added one at the bottom or the top? Well, you don't. So that's why it would get really, really confusing if we added a whole solid line all the way across. We'd never know which line was the bottom and which line was the top. So we add these little lines and just extend the staff down, okay? Or we can add it above. These lines are called ledger lines, okay? And they're really little and they're just for the note. Now, here's the top of the staff. The next line, just like we go line to space, we do that with the ledger lines too. So we go space, then we draw a little line, and there's a note on the ledger line. Then we're gonna draw that line again, and the note sits on top. Okay, here's what's a little different. And sometimes I see students do this. They add a line on top to make it a space note. It kind of looks like a tomato sandwich, okay? Don't add the piece of bread on top. Just draw the ledger line and the note. And the note, when it's above the staff on a ledger line, it just sits there. You don't have to keep adding lines, okay? Or we could go 2 ledger lines, and then there's the note. Okay, so just like we did on the staff, space, line, space note, line note. It's just that this is 2 ledger lines high. This is third position here. So there's a space note going up. We could even draw one more. High E. So we could just keep going adding ledger lines, okay? So you'll see on page 2, you are going to be adding ledger lines. One more thing, I'm looking at the paper here. Here's hanging under the staff. To go lower, you draw a ledger line, note, just like up here. Then down here, okay, remember no sandwiches, so it just hangs, okay? It just hangs down and we don't add another line underneath it. Now, if we want a line note, if you need to go lower, then you have to draw the blank ledger line and then the one right below it, okay? So that's ledger lines. Then, on the very next page, I talk about how music used to be written with a fountain pen or even a quill, right? So quills or fountain pens had something like this, like the marker. Do you see how it's wider and thicker? So what happens is when they would write with it, if they didn't change the angle, do you see how some of that is thick and some of that is thin? Do it again. So it changes. So what happened is we got used to reading music when it was written with a pen like that. And now first of all, we had typewriters where they would hit a button and a little arm would flop up and hit the paper in a symbol after some ink had gone on it, okay? And so they designed the typewriters to imitate and look like somebody had written it by hand. They also, in computers now, they designed it so that it looks like someone wrote it with a pen that has sometimes wide and sometimes narrow. So you can see how the long part of the treble clef is a narrow, and then it's wide, and then wide and narrow and wide, okay? Or the whole note. See how the sides are wide? What you do not have to do is they decided to keep that font and make all music look like that. So sometimes I'll have students who are drawing whole notes do this, and they'll color in the sides because that's what it looks like. You don't have to do that. You don't have a pen that does that, so you just have to draw it so it's a circle. Or a treble clef, you just draw it so it's all the same, okay? We're following the shape. Here's the dot, curve, dot. The flat, you can see there, it kind of goes skinny and then really thick. That's cool, but when you write it on your paper, just like that, okay? That's when we write with pencil, that's what it should look like. So at the bottom of that page, you're gonna see I have a piano symbol, forte, a natural, a fermata sign, and then a sharp. Just write them like you would with a pencil. You can see, here's how the computer writes them, and you write them this way, okay? Now, from now on in your theory pages, you're gonna see this kind of where some edges are thicker and some are thinner. Again, you don't have to ever write it like that. You can write it just like this, like it looks like you wrote it with a pencil, just drawing it. And you don't have to color in the sides for your whole notes, just draw a circle, okay? So that's your lesson for this week. That's it. I'll see you guys next week.